Hey guys, I want to make a quick video. I've been watching a lot of videos, and I've done videos on like relationships and stuff in the past. But anyway, just watching a lot of videos, more or less talking about that are very polarized one way or another, with relationships, saying that uh, people are not getting together because gals are too picky, and or guys are not looking or whatever because they're angry, or on and on and on. And ultimately I wanted to kind of add my 2 cents on all this because, to be honest, I think that probably about 25 years ago there was a huge shift, and I don't think I've ever seen this talked about on the video before, or like on YouTube on videos. But ultimately what happened maybe about 25 years ago is that, prior to that, back in the 90s on back, is that at the high school level, and junior high level, is that if you were the guy and gal that were hardworking, athletic, handsome, cute, uh, um, outgoing, those were the kids that were the most popular, and those were the focus of the majority of schools in the United States. Um, Now I kind of almost feel like, probably since about 25 years ago, there's been this massive shift towards, almost, I would call it maybe like a thug culture, where the tattoos, the just kind of over sexualization, being naughty or bad, or all of these kind of things have all of a sudden become more mainstream, to the point where, literally you have gals and guys that are like some of the most popular people in school now. They've kind of are the kids, and that are like listening to rap all the time, or maybe kind of thuggish, or getting in trouble all the time. And I think this even then has transmitted, especially in the millennial generation, out into life. And So that's obviously caused some problems, because I think what men and women are kind of looking for, and have been programmed for from a young age, has then kind of revolved around that, rather than looking for someone who's going to be a good, solid person, emotionally, spiritually, and maybe have, obviously, want to have some attraction physically too. So that's just really caused a lot of problems, in general, in the whole scheme of things. But uh, of course, social media, and the dating apps, I think that that has a lot to do with it too. And I think a lot of those came in, maybe what, like maybe around 2007 or 8, 6, 5. I mean, I remember, basically trying out. I think it was like Match.com, no joke. Like, I think it was like 97 or 98 or something like that. So that one's been around forever, back in those days or whatever. But ultimately, is it talking about how kind of men and women view each other, and get together in relationships. I think that's also kind of changed a lot also, and I kind of blame a lot of that on dating apps, and I've kind of talked about that in past videos. But one thing I really haven't talked about is the whole ability, um, well, understanding that, like, for men and women, is that there are obviously roles, and then, uh, certain traditions, as far as specifically on the women's side, I think, where there just was not, a lot of, women who are going around just having massive amounts of sex, and having tons of partners. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying, that, uh, those types of gals were, it wasn't just a mainstream thing. That's my point. Now it's pretty much mainstream, and a lot of that I blame on, like, the dating apps and that kind of thing. And then also just the culture of, hey, it's like, gals, you can do anything you want. You can. I mean, that's true, and you should be able to do whatever you want. However, it's just like anything else in life. Is that, guess what? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it, and that it's good for you. People could go out and do drugs, and and drink themselves into oblivion, or I mean, there's tons and tons of things you can do that could just destroy your life and make your life suck. So that being said, is that women specifically on that side is that understand that with the kind of change that's happened here or whatever is with the dating apps and just the kind of sleeping with lots of different guys, is that there's a reason that women for thousands of years did not do that. And that's what you need to start exploring a little bit and understanding that that's not just because women were oppressed or whatever that entire time. There was obviously ebbs and flows of that in different cultures and different places. But these things were synonymous, and there's reasons for that. I personally think, and I've dated a lot of different gals over the years or whatever, is that some of the problem is that when a woman sleeps with a man, has sex with a man, I think that they actually bond much deeper with that, and so they talk about, like, if you watch a lot of violence on TV or you go to war, is you can basically be just desensitized to violence, or you play video games and you're just obviously like where you're shooting a lot of people or something like that, and it's like where you can literally just be desensitized to violence. I think for women who sleep with a lot of men, is that can actually, because they're definitely more emotionally dialed in and more emotional than men are, is that basically can make it very almost numb, and make it so that you have a hard time emotionally bonding with men. And I think it's much harder for women to get back from that than it is for a man. I mean, that's probably why the divorce rate, there's tons of divorces that are being, happening from women now. The majority, I think, I've seen in a couple of videos or reading articles, the majority are initiated by women now. So how, what's the good news? So obviously I talked about there's good news in the title for this video. Well, the good news is that, um, you know, on the men's side, men are pretty simple. Is that men are just looking for a peaceful, gentle, kind, warm gal that's supportive, and literally would do, would let them lead, and not be so unbelievably critical all the time of them in any way. Um, Obviously, you're going to have, if mistake after mistake is made, but most men, I think, are if they're given that responsibility, they're going to take it very seriously, especially if they're in love with the gal, and not screw that up. On the women's side, is that the good news is that if you're in this situation where you are desensitized and you feel that you are desensitized because of having sex with a lot of guys, I honestly believe that you can reverse that. And I don't care what all these very polarized videos left or right. It's like you have the polarized video where it says, oh yeah, the gal, she slept with like 50 guys, but then she gets to this guy and she goes, oh, I don't want to, I want to take it slow. I don't want to sleep with you right away or whatever, even though she's had tons of like one night stands and whatever. Is, guess what? Is it, and they act like the guy is be like, well, screw that, because she's basically, kind of used up or whatever. I mean, he'd say all kinds of rotten things, and in these videos supporting men or whatever, and there's even videos from gals that are talking about gals like that. But the reality is we're all human. We're all human beings, and we all have feelings and emotions. And but women obviously have stronger emotional connections. But the reality is that women, you're not just going to say that to a guy. If you get to a point where you have to disclose all that and you're in a serious relationship for obviously to move forward, maybe get married, and you really love the guy or whatever, it's like, or you feel like you love the guy, is that it's like there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff added to that. You're going to talk about the fact of, hey, I had this epiphany. I mean, the big thing too is that it's like trying to if you're trying to change this, and that's the good news, is I believe you can change this. So, as a gal, so you know, stop doing that. That's the first thing. And secondly, is when you stop doing it, maybe try to build a relationship. If you believe in Jesus Christ and God, and or it's like if you did at one point and maybe you've fallen away, it's like focus on that and focus on God and Jesus Christ. But you need to get away from this to reset yourself emotionally, because typically women are very emotionally based. And so you need to reset yourself emotionally, really focus on that, and stop doing that for a long period of time. Don't just walk out and go, okay, one day and go, oh, I'm going to go and just stop this. I'm going to make a huge change right now and go. And then you're going to go try to get into a serious relationship with a guy and tell him that that's not going to work because you're not ready and you're not emotionally reset yet. So it's like you need to take time, maybe not date for like 6 months or a year or something like that, and really reset yourself emotionally, so that you can actually bond with a man, and you're not in that situation where you're feeling like, well, I want to, run away to the next guy or whatever, and it's like, because ultimately the relationships, and I can attest to this, the relationships that really work in life between a man and woman are the ones where they're really not based on the sex. I mean, that's nice, and obviously that's typically the main reason that you get together with someone in the beginning. But ultimately, the most successful relationships are where you're the person's best friend. And you know that's the thing, is that if you're sleeping with a lot of guys because as a woman and you're very emotional, is that you're going to have a hard time bonding on that situation, because you're going to be thinking, oh, well, maybe there's a better guy for me or whatever, or it's like you're too focused on the sex part instead of the actual relationship part. And so that kind of time away, I think, would help you reset that a little bit. On the guy side, is that guys definitely, guys are in a position where it's hard because probably 80% of the guys, um, are not being looked at, who are maybe good, solid, decent guys, because of two reasons. One is either A, they're not like the high end guy that's that 5% where they're six foot plus, making 75 grand a year, blah blah blah, great shape, go to the gym. It's like 89% of guys don't fit into that category. So they're being looked over. So they're either that, or they're not the thug. They're not the thug culture with the tattoos and the kind of dangerous thing or whatever. So, those guys, depending on where they fell level wise for many years, would still end up with gals that were, cute or whatever, and stable, mainly just because, there would be some kind of balance there. But they're being overlooked a lot, I think, just because of women being hyper focused. Maybe some of it because of all the guy they're sleeping with. So, that and kind of changing their brain chemistry and the way they look at sex and guys a little bit, and maybe what they're exposed to, where maybe they sleep with a guy and then they see, oh, this guy's a multi millionaire, and so they get treated for a short period of time, and then he moves on to the next gal, and then in their brain they're thinking, oh, well, I can get that guy long term. Maybe he can't. And so it's like trying to find that balance or whatever, where you have a good match between a man and a woman or whatever. So anyway, um, so the good news is that all of this can be fixed and changed. This these videos that basically say to women, oh, well, you're used up and you can't fix this. And it's like, if you have that conversation, like I was saying earlier in the video, it's like if you have that conversation, obviously, if you're serious with a guy or whatever in the future, and you say, hey, I've slept with 30 guys, it's like, guess what? You're going to add a whole bunch of other discussions about growth and maybe changing yourself. And he wouldn't likely be with you, and you wouldn't be at that point where you're discussing marriage unless maybe you were had matured and changed and grown, I mean, and that's the last thing I will say, which is the most important thing in all of this, period, for men and women, is that in life, the most important thing, and I think it's probably, in my opinion, the whole reason we're here, and maybe you don't understand where we came from and where we're going, is basically because the whole point here is to grow. So, I mean, to learn, to get more wise, to become a better person, to become just more empathetic towards people, and understand people more, rather than, and of course shift focus where it's, obviously when you're younger, it's very, uh, it's very likely that you're more focused on yourself than other people, and maybe trying to understand and other people's lives and their situations or whatever, and having empathy towards them, and that growth and maturity of being able to get to that point. So, all of those kind of factor into being ready for a relationship or a marriage or that kind of thing, in the future. And I mean, in your 20s and 30s, let's be real, that's your best chance to make a good decision and find the right person that maybe would fit good or well with you. So, anyway, so the good news is that these things can be fixed. um, they don't define you. It's just a matter of guys and gals basically working on themselves and getting to a point where they're ready for a relationship, and maybe aren't so focused on the sex part and more focused on who is this person, what are they like inside, are they a good person, do we see eye to eye on a lot of things. One thing that was really very important to me is the person are they a Christian, do they believe in God, because that would be a very difficult one. So anyway, these are just kind of some of the things that, play into having a good relationship and maybe a good marriage in the future. So anyway, hopefully this helps. Please like, subscribe, leave comments, whatever. Share is very important. Obviously trying to grow the channel. And other than that, we'll just keep trying to create videos, and hopefully you enjoy them. So take care, God bless, and have a great day. Take care.